Mercury 2.5 horsepower two-stroke outboard engine. Minn Kota Riptide 55 transom mount trolling motor. Mercury. Minn Kota. Mercury. Minn Kota. Mercury. Minn Kota. These two outboards don't compare, or do they? Hi, I'm Wayne the Boat Guy, and in this video we're going to compare these two outboards. My Minn Kota Riptide 55 electric trolling motor with my Mercury 2.5 horsepower two-stroke gas outboard. So it might seem ridiculous to compare these two. Is it apples to oranges? But actually, it's more like apples to apples in this situation, and I'll show you why. First off, this Mercury 2.5 horsepower two-stroke outboard, I purchased this used for about $300. Recently, I purchased this Minn Kota Riptide 55 and a battery for about the same price. So what we have here is two transom mount, small horsepower, for lack of a better word, outboards that I paid about the same price for. So we really are able to compare an electric outboard with a gas-powered outboard, apples to apples. You're going to say this motor is made for doing something completely different than this one. However, with this not being like a 6 or a 10 horsepower outboard and only a 2.5 horsepower, I'm going to show you how they're more similar than you think. And then we'll look at the pros and cons of both of these and figure out which one's a winner. So looking at our Mercury 2.5, things I like about it is it starts pretty easily. It runs fairly smooth for it being a two-stroke outboard. And it's pretty simple. Whenever I have used this engine on this particular boat right here, I have been able to get it up to speeds of 7 miles an hour for brief moments of time. Most of the time I can get it up to about 6 miles an hour with my usual amount of equipment loaded on the boat. But some of the negatives about this little outboard engine is, number one, it's very loud. It's a two-stroke outboard, and it's quite loud whenever it's on the boat. There's some vibration at certain speeds. The starting procedure, although I've got it down, I mean, it's pretty cumbersome. I mean, you figure you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps to get it started. I've got to turn my fuel on, vent my fuel tank, make sure my fuel tank has fuel in it, set my choke, make sure my safety lanyard is clipped in, set my throttle just right, and pull this a couple of times, and it'll fire up. Once it's warmed up a bit, I take the choke down, make sure that there's water coming out of my telltale, and then idle it to where I want it to be. This one does not have a shifter on it, so it does not have a forward and reverse. To put it in reverse, you actually just spin the motor around and run the motor backwards. When you start this motor up, the prop is always spinning, which was a challenge for me the first few times I went to take it out. And of course, because it's a two-stroke outboard, there is some maintenance that you need to do periodically, like an impeller, making sure the carburetor is clean, changing out the spark plug. And because it is a two-stroke gasoline outboard engine, it does pollute. Taking a closer look at this Minn Kota Riptide 55, I've had it out a couple of times, and I really like this one as well. The neat things about these are the starting procedure is basically make sure it's connected to the battery and then click it in forward or click it in reverse. That's it. It says 5 forward speeds, 3 reverse speeds. That's all you have to do. There is no complicated starting process whenever you're using an electric trolling motor. Another neat thing about this, it's silent. There is only the slightest bit of electric motor sound whenever we're operating at speed 5. Other than that, all you hear is the water gurgling past the boat. It's completely silent. Maintenance on one of these, there is no maintenance. Everything is sealed up. There is no impeller, there's no water pump. It's completely sealed. You have to recharge your battery, so I guess that could be considered maintenance. Now, whenever I've taken this Minn Kota trolling motor out, the top speed I've achieved with it is about 4 miles per hour, which I understand is about the top speed that you can get from an unmodified electric trolling motor. Hey, if you're liking this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up down below. Thank you very much. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about range, because people always talk about the fact, well, you're limited in range with this and you're not limited with range with this. And that is 100% true. Like if we were talking about a larger boat that you're taking out into the ocean and you're going to be gone for an unknown amount of time, range is a very important thing. And that's one of the challenges with a lot of electric forms of transportation right now is range. But realistically, with these two types of outboards, what kind of range do you need? Most people, whenever they go out fishing and they're using a trolling motor, they'll talk about the fact that they have a battery or two hooked up and they can go out and go trolling all day long and their batteries are fine. This one comes with a less than a gallon tank built in. To me, range is really not that important when you're talking this size of an outboard. So in a way, I kind of think that range is not really an issue with either of these, because you're not using these types of motors to go a long range. Let's take a look at how they compare with certain things that I think are what matters. So first of all, speed. The obvious winner is the Mercury. It definitely beats the trolling motor, and even if I made modifications to that and ran it on a really light boat, you're not getting more than 4 miles an hour out of a trolling motor. I would need a completely different kind of electric outboard to be able to get higher speeds than that. And I'm not going to find one of those for $300 used. Range, as I mentioned, personally, I think it's kind of a tie, because I could bring a second battery along to be able to come back. And I could bring spare fuel for this to be able to come back. And realistically, you're probably not using either of these to go out for prolonged periods of time. Ease of use. The Minn Kota wins that hands down. I mean, there's nothing to starting that up. I could teach a 4-year-old how to start that up. I'm not teaching a 4-year-old how to start this up successfully. Costs. Because I bought both of these used, they cost me about the same amount of money. Now, over time, additional costs would be for maintenance items for this Mercury, spark plug, impeller, any other maintenance items I might need to purchase, and of course with the Minn Kota, another battery at some point in time. As I mentioned before, the weight of these is very, very similar. I think they're literally within 4 pounds of each other in terms of weight, so they weigh about the same. And then with regards to noise, I think noise is a factor because that is one of the things that really bothers me whenever I'm running this motor. I go out there and I run it wide open for a little while and I can't wait to throttle it down because it kind of gives me a headache after a little bit because it's just a loud little 2-stroke motor. So when it comes to noise, the Minn Kota obviously wins there. So if range isn't important to you and you're not in a race where you need to get somewhere very quickly, I think the Minn Kota is the winner in this situation. Now obviously, if you can run any kind of motor that you want, and you want more speed, I think something like a 5 or 6 horsepower outboard with a fuel tank is obviously going to give you a lot more speed and a lot more range. For somebody considering one of these 2 horsepower outboards, a trolling motor may be a really great alternative. So what do you think about a trolling motor versus a small gas motor? Well, once again, thank you so much for watching. Here's another video picked just for you, and a playlist of videos similar to this one. You stay safe out there in the water. When the wind dies down, I'm gonna take these for a ride, I think. I don't know if the wind's gonna die down today, though.